Hey, this is You Were Saying, and I'm Mike Vasquez.
Hi, my name's Mike Powell.
And today's topic is science fiction films, sci-fi cinema. What's new with you, Mike? We haven't recorded in a couple weeks.
No, it's been a while. It's been about 2 years now.
Well, it feels like that long. You know, you don't even live that far. You're just one city away from me, and yet it feels like we haven't seen each other in ages.
The third age of Middle Earth.
This is not a fantasy cast. This is a sci-fi cast. So if you could keep it to...
Well, they're pretty close.
I'm not a fantasy fan. I'm a sci-fi fan. That's what I am.
Yeah, but at cons, if you've ever been to a local convention, there's one here. It's kind of pathetic, but that's all we got.
Yeah, because we don't really live in big metropolitan areas, you know.
No.
But I've never been to a con, but I've seen it portrayed in enough network sitcoms.
At cons, you get a lot of mixture between fantasy people, science fiction people, comic book people, film people.
So it's kind of like a Reese's peanut butter cup. You got your chocolate and your peanut butter mixing together.
Yeah, I'd say it's more kind of like a stir fry. Kind of get everybody in there.
Oh, okay.
Throw them in a big vat of hot oil, and they sweat, and it stinks.
But see, that's the thing though, is like that's why I don't want to go, because I don't want to be around a pot full of sweaty nerds.
Yeah, there are some sacrifices you have to make.
It's like, I personally stay in like 95% of the time, and the only time I will venture out of my abode is if I think there are going to be like attractive women wherever I'm going.
So really, you're inside of what is that, like 98% of the time, really?
Yeah, it's like it's high 90s.
Yeah, 2% to get food and go to work.
Well, yeah, but I only get food at like where I think the hottest women are going to be shopping. Like, like if I'm getting a snack or something, like a sandwich, I'm going to like.
Is that why you usually eat in your kitchen?
That makes no sense. That doesn't make any sense.
Don't worry, it'll come to you.
Well, why don't you shut up? Because I know what you're trying to say, and I'm just going to ignore it. I think that's I'm trying to make a classy podcast here, and you're just running it through the mud.
I know that at some conventions they actually have posters or flyers or brochures they give out to people, reminding them that when they go back to their hotel, if it's like a huge convention like at a city, when they go back to their hotel to make sure they bathe, because a lot of people forget to bathe.
That is how could someone forget that?
You're up all night reading comics and chatting about the goings on in nerddom, and there's a lapse of judgment there.
Is there a lapse of one of your five senses? Is that the issue? That seems like a big issue to me. Like, and I will say, I actually did go to a convention recently, but not a science fiction, not a nerd convention.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, I actually went to Las Vegas for work. Some of you might not know I work for a small tech startup, and I don't understand the laughter, man. Like, just coming out of nowhere. I mean, that's what it is. That's what it is.
Sorry. I was drinking some tea and I choked.
Well, geez, hopefully one of these days it'll be fatal.
Well, let's hope not.
Well, agree to disagree.
My
Anyways.
parents were to the tea company. Anyways, what were you saying?
Good. They would get rich, and I would, be able to find a co-host who respects me. Anyways, every year, Amazon Web Services has a giant convention in Vegas. I went there, and this is my first time ever traveling to Vegas, and I went there and I worked the booth, basically, and worked these 10-hour days, just standing in the booth trying to talk to people about our product.
Ugh.
And yeah, exactly. And then afterwards, immediately after, basically going out all night because it's Vegas. We were only there for 3 days.
Is that the farthest west you've ever been?
No, I've been to California before, but I was like a kid. I was like 9 years old. I went to Legoland, California.
Wow.
Which, to be fair, I would probably go to as an adult.
You would?
Yeah, they make some really impressive stuff out of Lego, man.
Sure. They make like starships and race cars.
They make like recreations of like, skyscrapers and all sorts of crazy stuff just out of millions of Legos. Lego. I think the plural of Lego is also Lego.
I think it's Legos. I think there's an S at the end.
I'm pretty sure it's just Lego. So, I mean, one of us has actually been to Legoland, California. So
That's true. I've never been to
Let's trust his opinion.
the Legos of California.
It's Legoland. So, anyways, have you ever been to Vegas?
I've never even been to Ohio.
Well, from everything I've heard, Ohio's terrible. So,
I mean, that's as far west as I've been.
Okay.
It's not even Ohio.
Well,
I've never been to Vegas. No.
okay. Well, it's funny because Vegas has this reputation, for being this really wild, crazy party city, and what happens in Vegas.
So I've
Yeah,
heard.
what happens in Vegas, it stays in Vegas, or because there's so much crazy stuff going on, and really, it didn't feel that crazy.
Isn't isn't murder like legal there?
I think you're thinking of prostitution,
Oh.
and even that I'm not entirely sure. I think it's not allowed in Vegas. You have to like go into the middle of the mountains or something, and then it becomes legal. It's some weird jurisdictional thing.
Doesn't
kind
make
of
sense.
Well, it's kind of like international waters.
I thought something really crazy was legal there. Like, can't you like sacrifice?
You can gamble.
Oh,
Is
maybe
that-
that's what I meant.
Well, here's my thing is I don't smoke and I don't gamble. So
Wow, you must have had a hell of a time.
yeah, basically 85% of the allure was lost on me. Well, because even from when you like get off at the airport, even the airport has like slot machines. There are slot machines everywhere. Like Chinese restaurants have slot machines inside of them, and it's just so bizarre to me.
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, I'm not at an age where I find slots appealing. But I will say the conference itself was pretty cool. At the end of the conference, Intel, who sponsored the event, they had this huge party, and like they had Dead Mouse perform, and there was free food and drinks and all this stuff, and it was pretty awesome. And I mean there are some cool bits to Vegas. Like, don't get me wrong, but everything is on the Strip. It's like one street where like there's a ton of cool stuff and everything's lit up, and it's sort of like that stereotypical movie Vegas. But then if you move anywhere out of that little radius, then there's just nothing.
Well,
It's
it's a desert. I mean,
well, yeah, but I mean, it just seems like a weird place to go. I don't know. I feel like there are so many other cities that have like actual culture and history, that I would rather travel to.
what about like
than-
Nashville,
I'm not going to travel to Nashville.
Tennessee?
I don't think I'd be welcome there.
Oh, because you don't listen to like rock and roll.
Country music.
Well, they play a lot of rock and roll.
Well, I think
Birthplace
just,
of the blues. Or maybe that's
Is it-
Kentucky. I don't know.
you don't. Yeah, the Blues are pretty old. They probably don't have a birth certificate. So, and I will make one point about Vegas because it had its ups and downs. But I will say I haven't flown in like 4 years, and I noticed transitioning time zones and everything that it really messed up. And this is weird, but it really messed up my poop schedule.
Oh my god.
Yeah, well, no, it was like a legitimate concern, because like the entire 3 days I was there, nothing, and then I took the plane back and I had a layover in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then as soon as I was back on Eastern time, it's like my body just got back in sync, and it went crazy.
Now I've heard of people going through something called jet lag,
Mm-hmm.
where they think it's earlier or later than it really is.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I've never heard of somebody going through, I don't know, fecal lag, I guess.
I mean, can I get real for a minute?
If you have to, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm just like, I'm asking you, can I get real? Like, are you really ready to get real?
Like, I was born ready.
Okay, because I have a confession to make. Not only did like the floodgates get turned back on, but like it was weird. Like it was disconcerting. No, there was an oiliness that I had never once experienced, and I don't know if it was that arid desert air messing with my colon or something, but like,
Now, I'm not a doctor. I've never pretended to be, but that is a serious issue.
well, no, it went away, but I'm just saying, like, in that airport, like, I spilled more oil than the Exxon Valdez.
Maybe there's a lot of smog or something.
Maybe. I've never, yeah, like, I didn't venture outside of the airport, which in itself is a depressing experience, because the airport lobby, It's kind of like the most depressing shopping mall ever of like every
Yeah.
airport. You know, there's like Starbuckses and they serve like, you know, those sandwiches that are wrapped up in saran wrap and they cost like $8 even though they're like these really crappy
Well,
white bread.
that's
Yeah,
probably your problem, Mike.
well, I figured I was like if I'm gonna get a saran wrap sandwich, probably just go for the Starbucks one. That's probably relatively safe, right? You know what I mean? It's not like a gas station sandwich.
Yeah, but it's still a sandwich wrapped in, you know, plastic for, like, they don't change those every day, you know? Like, it's not like there's somebody who goes to the airport shopping mall, and says to himself, "Hey, man, this sandwich has been here for quite a while. I better do my due diligence and get some fresh product in here."
You say that like these places don't have employees. Like they're
Like,
automated.
they're working in a airport shopping mall. I think they have more pressing concerns than the due date on a sandwich.
Well, you know what? I would argue that if they are working in an airport, that they probably don't have bigger concerns. That's why they're working in an airport. If you're working at a Starbucks and not like a legitimate Starbucks in like downtown of a city, but like an airport Starbucks that doesn't even like have to prepare food, like you just have saran wrap sandwiches, then the least you can do is check the date on those sandwiches and see if it's time to replace them.
Like, I guarantee you that if you said to one of those people, "Hey, when was the last time you checked the date on this food product here?" they'd probably look at you like you're on heroin.
Listen, I will.
And then ask you where they can get some of that heroin.
You know what? I get it. You know, it's not a high paying job, probably, whatever. I will let them I'll let them go past the expiration date by 1 day. I'll give them an extra day. And I'm only doing that because back when I worked at Tim Hortons, I remember we always, Tim Hortons always advertises their coffee as 20-minute fresh. And it was like, what, 2 hours fresh? It was never 20 minutes fresh.
Like, it's not Trader Joe's, for God's sakes.
Well, not every town has a Trader Joe's.
No? I thought everyone had a Trader Joe's.
Do you have a Trader Joe's around you?
There is a Trader Joe's, yes.
But you don't shop there.
It's shit. No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Then why were you making it sound like it was better than Tim Hortons there?
Well, it is. I mean, there was one time I actually went to New York City for a little trip, and I ended up taking the bus. And probably the least fun part was taking the bus.
You took the bus all the way downstate to New York City?
Yeah.
Why did you? Oh my God! Why didn't you just take like a train or something?
Train takes forever, Mike.
So does a bus. What's the difference?
No, it's like 6 or 7 hours.
Well, wouldn't you? I mean, if you're really that concerned about time, why didn't you pay for a plane ticket?
What, Mike? Are you on heroin?
No, I don't know why you keep going back to that, man. I can say without a doubt that I'm not shooting
Okay.
up.
No. Why would I take a plane for a 2-day trip to New York?
Maybe because you want to maximize your amount of time in the Big Apple.
Big Apple.
Big Apple.
I took a bus because I wanted to take a bus to New York.
Yeah, who doesn't want that life experience? Sit next to some hobo peeing in a cup.
No, the buses are really nice there. Or the one I took. They were
Come to New
heated.
York City. We have the nicest buses in all the land.
I didn't take a New York Metro bus.
Oh, whatever.
I took a Greyhound. Anyways.
I've been to New York City quite often, quite frequently because all of my extended family lives down there. My parents are actually from New York City.
Oh,
and I have to say, a lot of people, I see on like Facebook and stuff, they vacation to New York City and they have sort of this magical touristy experience and they're taking pictures of themselves, in Times Square and they're like, look at all of these light up billboards. I can't even fathom it. I'm living in, the future of Blade Runner. and my experience has never been like, I've gotten like the gritty, like true crime Vice kind of look, and you know me, like I'm not hard like that, I'm not.
no,
I'm
you're a can't really think of anything that would be nice. Yeah, you're not really that hard.
I'm soft. We'll just say I'm soft.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and so I've been through like really rough neighborhoods. Like
which borough are we talking, like Queens or something?
I guess I can't even remember on it. It's been years since I've been there. Like for obvious reasons, I no longer go to those areas. Like I visit my cousin and that's it. So
Doesn't your cousin live in like Brooklyn though?
No, she just hangs out with people in Brooklyn.
Oh yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
everyone in Brooklyn.
Yeah, well, she's really into that music scene. You know, there's like all these there's all these different budding subgenres of music down there that make no sense to me. You know,
Maybe that's because you're not in Brooklyn.
maybe it's because I'm not full of myself and I have ears and I can listen to music and I have good taste. Maybe it's because of that.
You don't like noise drone?
What is that even like a thing? Is that
Yeah, it's totally
noise drone? That sounds like a military technique to get people out of a house or something, like a compound.
There's a guy called Merzbow. I don't think he's actually not a New York artist. I think he's Japanese, but
That would explain the name. Yeah,
yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, you give it a try sometime.
I would go to Japan.
Oh yeah, I would totally go to Japan.
I think I've heard that the Japanese are xenophobic though.
Yes, that's
Yeah, so they're probably not gonna take too kindly to us.
true. I mean, Americans are xenophobic, and we do fine.
That's true. Well, you and I especially, we hate a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, foreigners.
That's fair.
No, you know
Well-
what? Actually, I will say this. Like you and I were joking, but a lot of people like are seriously like that. And I saw a picture on Facebook today that someone shared, and it was of an SUV, and on the rear window of this SUV there was a huge decal of an American flag, and around the decal it said, "If this flag offends you, I'll show you the way out." Or no, it said, if this flag offends you, I'll help you pack. That's what it said. And I thought to myself, like, clearly this is an American car in America with an American flag on the background. Who on earth is really going to look at that while they're in America and be offended by that? Like if you went overseas to Japan and you saw a Japanese flag, would you really be like, really, guys? Did you really have to rub that in my face? It makes no sense to me.
Talking about kind of xenophobic people in Japan, there's actually a video of this guy. I think there's like a tour going on of people from other countries, but there's a man like shouting these kind of inflammatory remarks against essentially Caucasian people.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Getting real over here. This is real talk. That's what I always wanted to call this, was real talk with Mike and Mike.
That's taken, Mike.
Is it really?
I think real talk is probably copyrighted.
That's too bad. What about the Arsenio Hall show? Could we have called it that?
The Arsenio Hall show?
Yes.
Could we have called this show the Arsenio
Yeah.
Hall show?
Well, that was my second choice.
Probably not. No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, then
Pretty
I am
sure.
out of ideas.
Well, we have a name, Mike.
Well, I'm glad I'm glad that you picked it, because I would have given up after that one.
Yeah, Mike, the Arsenio Hall show is already a show.
Well.
I think it's hosted actually by someone. Arsenio Hall.
I just thought that like he died and they just like brought him back like a hologram, like that one of Tupac at that music festival.
Yeah, I mean, he might be dead. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bill Cosby's still alive.
Yeah, he did a comedy special for Comedy
Yeah.
Central recently, which I thought was incredible.
It looks pretty good.
Did they remove him from like cryogenic freezing? Did they?
I think he's just old. Yeah, I don't think he's dead yet. I think he's just old.
Oh, okay. So he was not frozen in a slab of carbonite and
He's
and
only
being stored in
76.
Jabba's
I mean,
palace. Really?
He's a grandpa.
He looks older than that though.
Well, he's had a long life.
It's because he's been eating too much Jello pudding, and it's been aging him prematurely.
You think of the chemicals?
I think, yeah, in the Jello pudding pops.
You know they make that stuff out of like animal corpses and stuff.
Yeah, but we eat animals all the time, so
I
I,
mean,
have no
like,
problem with that.
Animal carcasses and corpses. Like they
Is there a functional difference? Is there a practical difference between a corpse and a carcass?
like a human corpse.
Oh, that's okay. I've never.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
They grave rob cemeteries and then use the bone fragments to make jello.
That's great though, because even if no one buys the Jello, like for one fiscal year, they'll still survive from all of the jewelry that they take off of those corpses.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a smart idea.
And then it makes more room, opens up more plots so that you can bury more people.
I mean, seriously though, like how
Seriously,
how
yeah.
no how terrible of a criminal do you have to be to get caught grave robbing? Because all of the people around you are dead.
They have a night watchman.
The night watchman. Oh my! I would sleep through that job every single night. Are you kidding me?
I would never be able to fall asleep if I was in a cemetery. I can hardly fall asleep when it's dark out.
Do you sleep with a nightlight on?
No.
Okay. I think you might be lying. This is real talk. Trademark. So don't lie.
Like, you're gonna get sued. You're dealing with powers I don't think you comprehend.
I ain't scared of no ghosts. Is that the I ain't afraid of no ghosts?
That is a movie from the 80s, I think, right?
Am I doing more copyright infringement?
Yeah, we're gonna have to shut this down.
Yeah. Well, let's take a break. We'll come right back to you were saying.
So, do you remember that movie from I think it was like 2001? The Matrix?
I do, and it was from 1999. Probably the greatest movie ever.
Why
Yes.
is it your favorite movie?
A lot of reasons. I think the late 90s was kind of the peak of pop culture in a lot of ways. We had boy bands,
Well, let's make a particular distinction. It was the peak of our pop culture, our generation's
our
pop culture.
That's true.
Yeah.
No, but The Matrix is great for a lot of reasons. It sort of has this intersection between action and blockbuster action, and it deals with some philosophical themes, and it also it's an intelligent sci-fi movie, which is nice. It's an intelligent action movie. It's the thinking man's action blockbuster.
Yeah.
And it pioneered a lot of visual effects, before they sort of became played out. There really is a certain thrill to watching the first bullet time sequence, and it's been repeated so much that it kind of lost the magic, even in its sequels.
Yeah, that's true. Kind of feel there's a certain distaste to it.
Yeah. The pacing is tight. The characters are cool. It deals with these cool themes, what's reality versus perception. And it does them all pretty well. The Wachowskis...
It balances kind of like on a knife's edge at some points. And I think for the people that really liked it, it didn't fall off. It didn't teeter on that edge at all for them. It really worked out.
Yeah. Like, that's one of those movies that I could just quote endlessly. Agent Smith's another reason. They had a very compelling villain. A lot of these, I guess, more modern movies have really generic kind of trite villains. Like a lot of superhero movies, kind of, which we discussed in our first podcast.
Yeah, they have kind of lame villains.
It's sort of just generic. I want to take over the world and this and that.
Well, even Smith, has really nice depth to him, where he was part of a hive mind, which is a trope in sci-fi for the villain. I'm thinking of Dark City, for example, which I really liked. There are a lot of really great things in that movie. But its villain was a hive mind. Matrix, did take that idea, but centered it around Smith, who was able to think for himself, which is an interesting way to kind of balance those two tropes, those villain tropes.
Yeah, and it's cool that you mentioned Dark City, because I think that's a movie that a lot of people probably haven't heard of, and it came out like a year before The Matrix, and it's a very dark sci-fi movie, sort of like a neo-noir kind of feel.
Yeah, it takes a lot of influence from noir films, German expressionist films.
Which I know nothing about German expressionism or any kind of expressionism for that matter. I can't even say the word.
Yeah, German expressionism is basically kind of this artistic movement in Germany in between, like, I think World War I and World War II, where a lot of young German artists, painters, and filmmakers utilize a kind of wider known movement of expressionistic art as this kind of reaction to the political environment in Germany after World War I, after they lost the war. But German expressionism has a particular kind of importance to film in the way it has since really gone on to influence so many different aspects of how we see film. So, like, it's categorized sort of broadly as using multiple visual elements in film, like the set design, the lighting, character design, and these elements are really are actually used to convey a character's inner psychological self, as well as either a social kind of commentary or a political message two really kind of hugely popular works, probably I think the ones that people would have heard are Fritz Lang's Metropolis and F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu. But in regards to science fiction, films like Dark City and Blade Runner either borrowed or were heavily influenced by Metropolis, in particular through the set design in their respective cities, the city in Dark City and the city in Blade Runner. For example, in Dark City, right, the buildings in that world are skewed and distorted, kind of just enough to tick off that little place in your brain that says something isn't right. And this is actually, a point that's kind of made to a greater extent later in the film.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the movie in a few years, but I'll say two things about Dark City that surprised me. The first is that this is like the only time I've seen Kiefer Sutherland in a role where he's not like
the badass
punching terrorists. Yeah, he's sort of like a crazy doctor. What is it, like a mad scientist kind of character?
Yeah, the whole time I thought that was Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh my God, you have no idea how badly you just insulted Philip Seymour Hoffman. Like, Philip Seymour Hoffman is a great actor,
He's really
and
good.
you just
they just
compared
look
him
the
to
same,
Kiefer Sutherland. They do not look the same. What is wrong with you?
He was good. I liked him. He was funny.
Yeah. No, yeah, it wasn't bad. Yeah, and the second thing that surprised me was that I think David Goyer was the writer of that film.
He helped write it, yeah.
And David Goyer, actually, I think he's worth talking about because
he's worth his own show, Mike.
He's worth his own show.
Maybe we can get him on.
I probably not. I don't
I'll
think
pull
we have
some
a fan
strings
base yet.
I'll pull some strings with people up top.
Yeah, wouldn't that require being up there with them?
Like strings. You don't know anything about strings.
Well, here's what I do know. I know that Drake's song started from the bottom, now we're here. I feel like you're still at the bottom. I feel like you're still on the ground floor, hitting the door close button in the elevator, but it's not closing, it's jammed open, so it's not moving up. But Goyer, I don't want to do a whole podcast about Goyer. I want to talk about Goyer now.
Okay.
I just don't want to talk about one guy for the entire time. He's not. He sort of. What do you think of Goyer?
That's a good question. I don't think anything about Goyer.
Really? Well, he's written. For those who are unaware, like let me list some of the movies that he's written.
I think he worked on Blade. He's worked on almost all of the Nolan Batmans.
Yep. He did the story for all three of them. He did the screenplay for Batman Begins.
Yeah.
He did the story for Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance, which I cannot say I saw. He wrote Man of Steel, which you and I have mixed feelings about. And I kind of feel like he's one of these writers that he's sort of like the writer of like the Star Trek reboots. Is sort of good at writing something that really it has an emotional heft to it while you're watching it, but only afterwards do you start to notice all of the weird plot holes that kind of were there the whole time. Like, it's weighty. I like, you feel it in the moment. I think he's very good at that kind of emotional manipulation. And I'm not saying manipulation in a bad way, but I mean manipulating the audience, to feel the way he wants you to. And then afterwards, you're walking out of the theater. That's how I felt when I watched The Dark Knight Rises. I was like, man, that was so awesome. And I was like,
wait a minute.
Exactly. Yeah, wait a minute. And then you're like, wait a second. I've been duped.
That's so funny. Yeah, that
because nothing makes any sense in this film.
Intense feeling of like catharsis as he flies over the sea and
he flies.
Things explode and it's Batman's dead and he comes back and it's this beautiful moment. And then you get out of the theater and you're talking to your friends and you realize that Bane sounded ridiculous the whole time, and there were a lot of issues. That's
not one of my issues with the film.
That was definitely one of the issues that the people I saw it with had.
I mean, I don't necessarily appreciate how they whitewashed like Batman's only Hispanic villain, but I did appreciate that he sounded like a dastardly, old-timey British villain.
Which doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
It made no sense at all, but I loved that he sort of had that twirly mustache.
At least they had fun with it.
Yeah, well, Tom Hardy clearly had fun with the role, which is cool.
Yeah. That helps.
I mean, because I like Christian Bale's portrayal as Batman, but as the protagonist, he has absolutely no fun as Bruce Wayne. He's just so broody and dark all the time. Which that's fine. That works for the character. But I think it's important for the villain to kind of have some contrast with that and seem like they enjoy being on the set.
Well, luckily, you don't have to worry about that too much now, as we have Mr. Affleck helming the cowl. So we should get a lot of nice, fun antics out of him.
Yeah, you think it's going to be like Batman Forever? Not Batman Forever, Batman and Robin?
Yeah, the George Clooney thing. It'll probably be exactly like that.
The George Clooney, yeah, with the suits with bat nips.
Yeah. It should be pretty good.
I actually read that those suits were supposed to harken back to ancient Greek sculpture.
Yeah, well, I mean, that works, but...
Yeah, it works, but on the other hand...
It looks silly.
It did look pretty silly. Like, it was really cold in that movie, though. Mr. Freeze was in it, so maybe that's why they were pointing out.
Maybe it was, contextual.
George Clooney just has really hard nips.
Maybe not talk too much about George Clooney, because you actually said something interesting earlier about the Matrix films.
Yeah.
About, how they were a little bit more kind of, at that particular time, there were a lot of kind of science-grounded films going on around that kind of late 90s, early 2000s period, the techno phase.
Love that phase.
Yeah, great phase.
Cyberpunk.
I love cyberpunk. It's fun. At that particular point, there maybe was a need for something maybe a little bit more intellectual. It's hard to say how intellectual Matrix was because it did have people flying in it. But
that was so cool.
Yeah,
What?
It was awesome. I loved it. But to kind of juxtapose it, now we're at that same point where we're moving into like a new phase in like human society and stuff like that. And we're getting a lot of interesting tech-centered and super futuristic movies going on right now. Like Prometheus. Really, really cool visuals, like that cool spaceship flying through the space.
Yeah. The laser scanner things. And
Elysium, another really good-looking film.
very simple kind of thematically, though.
Yeah, they lack a large amount of what makes what I think people enjoy about sci-fi.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny, because Elysium, which I have a feeling not many people saw Elysium.
I saw Elysium.
Well, I saw it too, and I liked it, but I thought it was really inferior to the director's previous movie, District 9.
Who was the director?
I think it's Neil Blomkamp.
Yeah, District 9. I feel like it was helped by the names attached to it. I think it had Peter Jackson somewhere in the title.
Oh yeah, I think it was like he presented it. What does it mean when someone presents a movie?
It means they have a large cut.
Oh, okay. But not only that, but in itself, it was a really great kind of intelligent sci-fi movie. It was obviously it was sort of a comment on apartheid in South Africa.
Yeah.
But it did it in a way that it was obvious, but it wasn't overwrought. It wasn't too in your face.
Yeah. It did what like I can't say that I am an aficionado of
apartheid
science.
Okay.
Of science fiction. I don't know anything about apartheid either, mostly because I'm not in South Africa, but it's a very important topic and you should look it up. But about science fiction, like science fiction has a really, really long, rich history, going back to way back in like the 30s and 40s of film. It's really important to film and its history. So it's definitely something to look into if you are into that world, because it's really, really deep and rich. So different people have their own personal feelings towards science fiction. And my personal feelings towards it is movies like, or stories like District 9, for example, are really kind of not really benchmarks, but they have the elements that I enjoy.
Well, I think I think I kind of agree with you. I think what you're kind of saying is that sci-fi works best when it's sort of functioning as a social commentary.
Exactly. Yes.
Which yeah, like sci-fi, dystopian fiction, like 1984, was commenting on post-World War II Britain, it's stuff like that. Yeah, so I think that's way better than Transformers,
Yeah.
directed by Michael Bay.
There's no message at all in Transformers.
The message there is buy Transformers toys. That's the message.
Well,
buy
that's
your
always
Shia LaBeouf
that's
action
always been the
figure.
message of Transformers: buy the toys.
I actually I still can't get over the fact that you just told our listening audience to look up apartheid. Like are you giving them homework or something? Like
It's a topic that people need to know about, Mike.
okay, well, okay, guys,
Like-
if you could write a 5-page paper, double spaced, 12 point
What
font.
is this, high school, Mike? 5-page, double spaced.
Well, I'm not going to give them a huge assignment.
History repeats itself. It's good to know about these things.
Okay, but I mean that happened in South Africa, so as long as it doesn't happen here in America, we're all set.
That's a good point.
And I feel like our audience is probably mostly American, so
I mean, I would love some international listeners. That'd be great.
I would like some Australian women, because I've heard.
Now, there's a difference between international listeners and Australian women. Just to make that distinction.
Okay, I'm just saying they could play my didgeridoo.
You don't play any instrument, Mike.
That's not what I was. It's not what I. Never mind. It's not what I was getting at, Mike. God, you don't understand innuendo. Well, it's funny that we sort of mentioned, District 9, which is a very it's made on a low budget. It's a very intelligent sci-fi movie.
I mean, to be
and
fair,
yet-
it's not really
Yeah.
that low. Of a
well, it's
budget.
not. Yeah. Well, no, it was. It was relatively low budget, just $30 million.
It's still, I mean, it looked amazing. I mean, the effects and stuff are rather nice.
Sure, but I mean, compare that to like Transformers, which has a budget of like $150 million.
Yeah, I mean, in comparison, relative terms, it was pretty cheap.
And the cinematography in those Transformers films is so
Shit.
bad that even though ILM invests, thousands upon thousands of hours and all of this server power into rendering these amazingly detailed robots that can, they can transform and everything, their models, they're incredible. You can't even enjoy them because Michael Bay, he zooms in really close to the action and he shakes it all around, so you can't even understand what's happening in fight scenes. It's really depressing.
I remember in high school when that first Transformers came out, everyone loved it.
Yeah.
And now
I actually, I think the first Transformers is the least offensive Transformers film by far. Well, I'll say this.
I have
will
unfortunate news for you, Mike.
What's that?
They all sucked.
Well, come on. I think you're being kind of hard. The first one, I think, worked because at its core, there was sort of the story of, it was sort of a coming-of-age story of a boy getting his first car.
Yeah.
Which I think in American culture, it's kind of a coming-of-age.
It's applicable, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think for that reason, it didn't fall apart in the way that the two sequels were just huge, disgusting messes. I mean, really, I can't even remember the story of either of the sequels. I just remember, like, Chicago gets destroyed, and Leonard Nimoy voices an old robot. Yeah.
He always does that. Like, he just voices, like, past. Like, in the Star Trek reboot. Like, he was just his old character from, 800 years ago.
Which is, I mean, that's awesome. If you could play the character that you played, like, 50 years ago, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would, but...
Well, I think Leonard Nimoy's a smart guy. You know what? I'm actually a defender of those Star Trek films. Even though they're sort of guilty of the same kind of plot holes that The Dark Knight Rises is, and I blasted that earlier today, they're hugely entertaining films.
Yeah,
they're
fun.
And they're not offensively stupid in the way that a Transformers film is. J.J. Abrams is actually, I think he's a competent director. He knows how to shoot action. He knows how to get pacing and stuff like that, right? Cinematography. So they're well-made films.
Mm-hmm.
They just sort of fall apart at the writing level.
Interesting about J.J. Abrams, I didn't actually think about this before, but he is a director who is kind of cemented himself as a reliable, kind of mainstream science fiction artist, I guess. A lot of his work has kind of sat in that wheelhouse.
Yeah, there was, there was Super 8, and wasn't that kind of sci-fi?
Yeah, I mean, that was
That was an homage to
Pretty
the
much.
Amblin films of the 80s, the early 80s. And then you had Cloverfield, which was an homage to
the monster flicks,
the monster movies. And then you had the Star Trek films, which were an homage to Star Trek.
You had
you had Mission Impossible 3, which was just
I didn't
another
see
Mission
that.
Impossible. Well, you didn't see. Okay, Philip Seymour Hoffman was actually the villain in that, not Kiefer Sutherland.
Oh, see, I probably would have thought it was Kiefer Sutherland.
You would have, because you're a horribly blind racist.
Well, that's because Kiefer Sutherland usually plays the villain.
Does he? I thought he was busy saving America.
I don't know. They all look the same to me. He also did Lost. Didn't he do Lost?
Yeah, he did Lost, which I didn't watch Lost.
That's a science fiction piece of entertainment, right?
Sure, yeah. I haven't seen it, though.
You didn't see Lost? You seem like the type.
You know, I got into it really late, and when I was going to watch it, I heard by then that the writers didn't know what they were doing anymore. And so I didn't want to watch that. I gave up. You know, if we're going to talk about sci-fi TV really quick, though, this series just came out on Fox called Almost Human.
Wait, what?
It's called Almost Human.
I thought you were saying Being Human. That's
no,
not
it's called
for a while.
Almost Human.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a cop procedural show that takes place 35 years in the future, and it stars Carl Urban as a human cop, and he's paired, get this, with an android cop.
Oh, boy.
Yep, and Carl Urban needs to overcome his dislike of androids when he's paired with this guy.
Now, that sounds silly enough.
Sure.
But that actually is a competent kind of sci-fi idea. You know, taking the future world, this futuristic landscape, applying modern ideas to it, and making it fun.
Yeah. You know, it's on Fox, so it's probably going to get canceled.
It's probably going to
after,
be shit,
like,
yeah, but, I mean...
2 more episodes. You know, I've seen the first 2 episodes, and I've actually enjoyed it quite a bit, but I do have the feeling that they're going to cancel it after, like just halfway through next week's episode. They're just going to be like, you know what, we're done. Because that's what Fox does. They're a horrible network. But New Girl keeps going on.
Oh, Mike, please. I don't want to talk about New Girl.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it either. I don't... No.
I watched 2 TV shows, and New Girl is not one of them.
Let me guess. The Mindy Project. That has to be one of them.
I don't even know what that is. Right now I'm watching Twin Peaks and anime. That's about it.
So the only TV, so the one TV show you could actually list is from like 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's pertinent. What? It's kind of
Don't
sci-fi.
you get Netflix, man? You can watch like House of Cards. That was awesome. It's not sci-fi though.
What? It's not like on TNT or something?
It's not on TNT though. They know drama. So
That's fair. That's a good point, Mike.
you know what's great? USA. I'll tell you my idea for a USA original series sometime. But
Can I try to
not
guess?
this
Can I
episode.
try to guess what it is?
I would prefer you didn't, because you're
Okay.
gonna get it wrong and you're just gonna make it look bad. You're just gonna ruin it. You're gonna taint it.
Does it have anything to do with a 30-something male who is looking for his meaning in life or something?
I mean, on the loosest, in the loosest possible way, sure.
Oh, so yes, basically.
Okay, whatever, man. So, Mike, I didn't tell you. I actually have a new dating story for you.
Is this one happy or sad?
It's you know, actually, I mean, I have a few stories, but
I
I'm
guess-
actually I'm gonna start with a sequel.
To clarify, is it happy for me or sad for you?
You seem to take a lot of pleasure in other people's pain.
Well,
so
I'm
yes.
not a sadist.
Well, okay. Well, anyways, this is actually kind of a sequel to a story that I told last time, or as I prefer to call it, the squeakquel, because that's what they use in the Alvin and Chipmunks. That's what they use in the Alvin and Chipmunks
every
movies.
other joke you've made. But what's the sequel?
This is every. Do I make too many references to Alvin and the Chipmunks?
You sound
give
like
you-
one of them, to be fair.
I'll give you $3 if you yell out Alvin.
No, I think my roommate's home. I don't want to.
Oh, okay.
Upset
That's
him.
That's very polite of you.
Mhm.
So, last time, I told the story of I told her about us planning to do this podcast and how she told me, you know, if you ever make a podcast, I'm going to stop talking to you. And then she ended up stopping talking to me anyways. You remember that story?
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
It was before you
It's
ever
tragic.
even created a podcast, right?
Exactly. It's before we even made the podcast. But I will say that, you know, I had no idea why. Like, you know, we could only speculate back in the second podcast. This is the third podcast. We're going back to the future now. And I will say that I found out it's because she got back with her ex-boyfriend.
That'll usually do it.
That'll do it. Yeah.
That'll do it.
Well, here's the thing, though. That's a touchy subject because people, when they break up, you know, they are very gung-ho about it. And I think that's a bad position to take. If I break up with someone, I want to be just as silent about it as possible. And do you know what? Here's why. Because I feel like a lot of the time I see on Facebook and stuff, I see my friends, they will break up with someone, they will blast that person in the ass verbally, and then they'll get back with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened here. You know, she broke up with this guy, and you know, all the time told me all these horrible stories about him, how he's a sociopath and he's anger prone and violent and always getting into fights, and he's just this horrible person, you know, in every single conceivable way. No redeeming qualities whatsoever. And then she got back with him. How do you do that? How do you manage to reconcile those? And that's kind of how I feel, is like maybe she just didn't want to have to look me in the face after 5 months of complaining about this one person and then taking him back. You know what I mean?
Well, people are crazy sometimes when it comes to feelings of love and warm, happy stuff.
Are you sure it's not just desperation?
It's not always rational.
Sure. But I think desperation sounds a bit more likely.
But I mean, she's not really desperate if you know, she can have multiple people at one time. I mean, she's not really desperate if she can see you while still pining after somebody else.
Yeah. But how was I supposed to know that?
I don't know, probably because of the fact she stopped talking to you.
Well, I knew it then. Yeah, thank you. So I meant up until then. This is you are like the worst person for. I'm so you know what, this Thanksgiving I'm going to thank everyone that you are not a father, because I cannot imagine you giving good advice.
Oh god, that'd be terrible.
It'd be so bad. You're gonna mess that poor kid up.
All right. Well, with that, we're gonna take a quick break. So, Mike, how much fun did you have today?
I had so much fun. You know how I
On
feel
the show.
about yeah, I mean, like, just in general, I always have fun recording these, you know. Kind of wish it was like a visual podcast, like a film.
Yeah, that's not a podcast. That's a vlog you're thinking of.
Okay,
or a TV show.
Yeah, TV.
Yeah.
I'd be cool with starring in a TV show.
You're thinking of a TV show.
I just feel like my face is ready for the prime time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe give me my own ABC Family sitcom.
Something on TNT or USA.
Oh my God, that'd be dynamite.
Something
Get
where you were.
TNT. Oh God, I am just on fire right now.
And with that, I think it's time to close.
Don't forget to like us on Facebook.
Yes, we have a new Facebook page.
We do have a Facebook page, facebook.com/YWS podcast.
It's very hot. It's very popular.
It's very hot. It's very hot page. You know.
Yeah.
I feel it every time I click on that link. I'm like, damn, this is hot.
That's where all the cool kids come to mingle.
Exactly, yeah. A Tumblr, definitely. YWSpodcast.tumblr.com, where we have all of our episodes for streaming and download links.
It's great, yeah.
Check us out on iTunes. You can subscribe there. That's what I do personally. You know, I just load it up on my Apple iPhone 5S. I'm like, boom. Yeah, we'll have an iPhone cast too. Don't worry about it.
Sure, that sounds terrible, but yeah, I'm up for it.
And are there any other links you would like to plug before we go?
Yeah, we have we each have a Twitter.
Yes.
You can check us out there. See what kind of awesome, great, kind of pathetic things we're writing.
My Twitter's not pathetic. I'm at HipNihilist, and I have over 300 followers. So that's a legion. That's an army in
That's
some
a lot
countries.
of people. There's a lot of bots following you.
It's not. You can't prove that.
I'm at Mort Hobbs.
And on that note, hope you enjoyed this episode. You know, if you ever have any suggestions or anything, feel free to email us at ywspodcast@gmail.com.
We would love any suggestions, even if it's bullshit.
That's true. I mean, we'll just ignore those ones. But yeah, you know, send us some good stuff. We appreciate that. And have a good night.